And now we will conclude Lecture 9 with Presentation 4. Last discovered but oldest Australopithecus and hominin Australopithecus afarensis. In the 1970s, an international paleontology team recovered a remarkable fossil individual in the Afar Triangle of Ethiopia. It was identified by White and Johansson as Australopithecus afarensis, and the moniker I Love Lucy works very well here. The fossilized remains of the individual were collected over several field seasons. They included cranial fragments, a mandible with teeth, and about 40% of the postcranial skeleton of a gracile-skulled adult female nicknamed Lucy. Lucy's pelvis was short and bowl-shaped. She was bipedal. Lucy's femur had a medial angle. She was bipedal. And Lucy's tibia had a horizontally placed platform plateau. She was bipedal. Australopithecus afarensis was a no doubt about it bipedal human. Then, rocking the anthropological world, a second Lucy was discovered. Actually, it's a Luke, but let's discuss that. Crania from other individuals indicated that Australopithecus afarensis had ape-sized brains and prognathic faces, and that males and females were sexually dimorphic in size. Males were much larger than females. Last discovered but oldest Australopithecus, maybe we've got a new species. Let's talk about this. In 1995, Maeve Leakey, the wife of Richard Leakey, daughter-in-law of Lewis and Mary, described a new species, Australopithecus anamensis, from Lake Turkana, Kenya, in East Africa. Dated at 4.2 million years ago, it is definitely the oldest hominin. Consensus on its species status has not been reached. There aren't very many fossils. So we are placing it into Australopithecus afarensis, an old representative of Lucy's kind. The fossils were placed in the genus Australopithecus on the basis of dentition and postcranial anatomy. It had a tibia with a platform plateau. It was definitely a biped. So let's discuss adaptive profiles for our Pliocene humans. Our genera include Australopithecus, dated at 4.2 to 2.4 million years ago, and Paranthropus, dated at 2.6 to 1 million years ago. The East African species for both genera are the oldest. The oldest of all hominins is Australopithecus afarensis. The oldest of the Paranthropines is Paranthropus ethiopicus, followed by Paranthropus boisei. The South African species are the most recent or youngest. These include Australopithecus africanus and Paranthropus robustus. Body size, both were short. None of the individuals were over 5 feet in height, and none weighed more than 110 pounds. Sexual dimorphism was extreme. Brain size ranged within the apes, and so none were larger than 550 cubic centimeters in cranial volume. And locomotion was an early form of bipedalism. Now, the next parts of this presentation, I will talk to you about 3 more adaptive variables. Habitat, I define it or identify it as mixed. Diet, omnivory, though this is a little bit of a reach for Paranthropus. And tools, organic and Oldowan stone tools, and we'll talk about the complications with that in a moment. Some paleoanthropologists hypothesize that early hominins lived in tropical habitats, and others argue for the use of drier savanna woodlands. This is a false dichotomy of either-or categories. Look at African ape habitat diversity today. All African apes use tropical rainforest habitat. Mountain gorillas, lowland gorillas, both types of chimpanzees, the common chimp and the pygmy chimp. Most use woodlands and savanna grasslands. And sympatric, so living within the same habitat, chimpanzees and gorillas use riverine basin forests. Bais is what they're called. And all utilize gallery forests. These are less densely forested and tend to be between wetland zones and true rainforest. All absolutely love transitional zones between habitats. These tend to be rich in food quantity as well as variety. And remember, these are omnivores, so they like their variety. Why wouldn't ancient humans have been equally diverse in habitat use? Chimpanzee broad spatulate incisors and low rounded premolars and molar cusps indicate frugivory and/or omnivory. Behavioral data from wild chimpanzees indicate an omnivorous diet. Modern humans have the same dental dietary adaptations and omnivorous diets. Both of these groups are closely related to the early Pliocene hominins, and the humans are more closely related than our chimps, but they both make good models. Australopithecus dietary niche, omnivorous. You can see Australopithecus afarensis here, right between the chimpanzee and the modern human. The dentition in Australopithecus is like that of chimpanzees and modern humans. Australopithecus omnivory fits with habitat variation. Therefore, they were likely omnivorous. Paranthropus dietary niche is a puzzling form of omnivory. Paranthropus had unique dental dietary adaptations unlike any other primate species extinct or extant. You can see it here between the chimpanzee and the modern human. It just doesn't look the same. Paranthropus is characterized by heavy masticatory chewing adaptations. The sagittal crest atop the skull makes more surface area for large cheek muscles. The megadontic cheek teeth indicate the use of those teeth for grinding and chomping down on something, and it had huge jaws, which were also related to those heavy muscles for chewing. This human was a chewer. Microscopic comparison of enamelware reveals that different foods were processed by the two genera. But this does not mean that Paranthropus had a non-omnivorous diet. Before I discuss this, let's take a look at these images. Australopithecus on the left has an enamel surface on the chewing surface of its teeth that suggests wear associated with soft food consumption. For Paranthropus, the enamel wear suggests a diet of tough and hard foods. Paranthropus and keystone foods. The tough and fibrous foods in the Paranthropus diet may have been keystone foods. What are keystone foods? Keystone foods are less desirable but readily available foods eaten when preferred foods are not available. Sympatric lowland gorillas and chimpanzees have the same omnivorous fruit-heavy diets, but if chimpanzee competition is too high, gorillas fall back on keystone foods, vegetation, and hard, unripened fruit that chimpanzees cannot access. Chimpanzees are a much more aggressive animal than gorillas are, and a single chimpanzee can chase an entire family of gorillas out of a fruit tree, and then it can climb up and get the fruit out of it. You might wonder, well, why doesn't the great big silverback male chase off the chimpanzee? All that silverback male wants is quiet. It's like a great big dog, like a Labrador. And basically, they put on a show of being big, but most of the time they're very gentle creatures. So once its family is safe, the gorillas will just wander off elsewhere to find other foods. Similarly, Paranthropus had adaptations for eating foods that its competitors could not access. Plus, Even though it is often ignored, there is solid evidence of stone tools and organic tools at Paranthropus localities, and we know that those tools were used to access foods. Oldest stone tools, Gona, Ethiopia, 2.5 megaanna. In 1992 and 1995, more than 2,500 stone tool flakes and cores of the Oldowan type were recovered along the Gona River in Ethiopia. These are older than any tools from anywhere, even Olduvai Gorge. No hominin fossils have been recovered in association with the Gona Oldowan stone tools, but Australopithecus afarensis and Paranthropus ethiopicus were in the region at that time. At the East African Olduvai Gorge site, Paranthropus boisei, Zinj, was recovered in association with Oldowan stone tools. Later recovery of Homo habilis led to the conclusion that it was the tool maker. The same pattern is documented at sites in South Africa. Sterkfontein in South Africa, level 5, and you can see I've highlighted a red marker around the level, includes Paranthropus robustus, Homo habilis, and over 3,000 Oldowan stone tools. The tools were assigned to Homo habilis. At Zwartkrans in South Africa, levels 1 to 3 include Paranthropus robustus, Homo habilis, stone, and in this case, organic tools. Organic tools rarely preserved, but in the upper right you see organic bone tools. The tools were assigned to Homo habilis. Experimental archaeologists manufactured similar bone tools and experimented with using them to extract termites and tubers. Those are in-the-ground root plants. Wear marks on the experimental tool used for termite extraction were the most like wear patterns on the original tools. Conclusion: either or both of the hominins were using organic tools to extract termites from termite mounds. Bottom line on tool association data and Pliocene early humans. There is probable support for Australopithecus, but there is strong support for Paranthropus. So why is this information usually ignored? Let's put it down to generational resistance. Some of the older folks still can't get used to the fact that chimpanzees use tools. Some researchers argue that Paranthropus dietary adaptations rule out the need for a cultural assist from tools. That argument is contradicted by the East African and South African data. It also ignores the fact that Paranthropus may have used tools to extract and process foods prior to consumption. Would they have taken their wonderful masticatory apparatus to the ground to chew their food? No way! That's not primate, that's cow. It also ignores the fact that chimpanzees, as well as other non-human primates, use stone and organic tools to process foods before consumption. The fact is that all Pliocene humans were as brainy as chimps. All had more nimble hands and fingers than chimpanzees. None had knuckle-walking hands. And all could have used organic and stone tools, just like chimpanzees, to process foods before eating. So, who made and used the oldest stone tools, dating to 2.5 million years ago from Gona, Ethiopia? The best and most obvious answer is extinct humans in the Pliocene epoch. You have a small capacity for reason and some basic tool-making skills. Yep, that's you. Stone Age Horoscopes from Gary Larson. And now you are ready for Lecture 10, where you will learn about the brainy humans of the Pleistocene, the first members of the genus Homo, our genus.